Slim line. Okay, imagine this. You're out near Kimberley, South Africa, Northern Cape. It's late, really late past midnight. You're near these old, kind of desolate railway tracks shimmering in the heat haze. And then you hear something. Yeah, a whistle. Exactly, a whistle. But not, a modern diesel horn. It's this heavy, almost mournful shriek. Yeah, from a steam train. Steam train that hasn't actually run on those tracks for, well, over a century. Anyway, the locals have a name for it. The Ghost Train of Kimberley. It is a compelling piece of South African folklore, and it's deeply, deeply rooted in the area's history, particularly the trauma around the diamond rush. So today we're diving into quite a stack of accounts, trying to piece this together. We've got everything from old railway incident reports, believe it or not, right up to some pretty modern, shaky camera footage. And our mission really is to get past the spooky campfire story aspect. We want to unpack the real historical background of why it vanished, look closely at this decades-long pattern of sightings, and weigh up the different theories about what happened to the train, the crew, the cargo. Yeah, why did it just disappear? Leaving behind only this spectral echo, as you say. Yeah, it's a deep dive into some serious historical greed, but also, frankly, modern terror. Okay, so to really get a handle on the train's unusual fate, we have to start with the diamond rush itself. Kimberley in the early 1900s. It wasn't just some boom town. It was like ground zero for global industrialized fortune hunting, or pressure cooker. Absolutely. And the sources we have really emphasize the corporate rigidity. You have forces like De Beers controlling pretty much everything, production, security, and crucially for this story, transport. It's easy to forget how paranoid that environment was, isn't it? I mean, sitting on this colossal natural resource. Security was everything. The railway wasn't just about logistics. It was a lifeline, but also a potential vulnerability. Every shipment was incredibly valuable. And the fear of illicit mining or diamond buying, IDB as they called it, was constant, pervasive. Okay, so that sets the scene. Exactly. And that intense focus brings us to one specific train, the midnight supply train. It apparently ran every Saturday night. Its main job was ferrying essential gear out, but maybe more importantly, bringing high-value goods back towards the coast, possibly even refined diamonds. And then, one Saturday night, it just never showed up. It simply didn't arrive. And what the accounts really stress is the speed and the completeness of the vanishing. Yeah, we're not talking about a derailment where, you find the twisted metal the next morning, or even a violent robbery where there'd be signs of a stroke. No, nothing like that. The official investigation reports from the time and they are frustratingly sparse. They just confirm the train vanished. Engine, crew, wagons, tons of cargo, gone completely. No wreckage found, no major damage to the tracks further down, no reports of, say, a freak weather event or a seismic tremor that could explain it. It was just gone. Hang on. A whole steam train. I mean, that's a massive piece of engineering, tons of metal. How does something like that just disappear off the map without some kind of physical trace? Wouldn't there have been, I don't know, a massive sinkhole? Or maybe a flash flood that wiped out a section of track? The silence in the record seems odd. Well, that silence, that lack of any physical evidence, that's really the first huge clue, isn't it? It's what immediately fueled all the supernatural theory, because the logical explanations fall short. Right. A hidden ambush, sabotage, even a catastrophic accident, they always leave something. Bits of metal, disturbed ground, bodies. This vanishing was just too neat, too clean. Which suggests one of two things. Either whatever happened was somehow outside the normal laws of physics, or, perhaps more chillingly, it was covered up with almost terrifying efficiency, maybe to prevent widespread panic among the other railway workers who were vital to keeping the whole diamond operation running. So, the history leaves this vacuum, and that's where the legend starts to fester. Because if this was just an old unsolved disappearance, a cold case, we probably wouldn't still be talking about it like this. Exactly. What keeps this story burning is the fact that the train, even though it's historically gone, physically absent, it keeps showing up. And the phenomena, the sightings, they apparently started decades later, long after those specific Kimberley rail lines were either closed down or rerouted as the mining operations changed and consolidated. So the original path was falling into disuse. Yeah, overgrown, forgotten. Pretty much. Yet that's where the reports started cropping up. And we're often talking about people who probably don't know or care much about early 1900s diamond transport history, right? They're just out there, maybe crossing that deserted bit of the Northern Cape at night. What do they actually say they see and hear? consistently. Well, the accounts get incredibly specific. It moves beyond just, seeing a ghostly shape in the distance. Witnesses describe a quite terrifying sensory overload. Visually, it's often reported as a train of light or train of light. Yeah, moving at what seems like impossible speed, often down tracks that are rusted, broken, completely impassable for a real train. Okay, that's weird enough. I mentioned sensory overload. The sound must be key too. It's not just a faint, ghostly chug-chug, is it? It seems the sound is what really terrifies people. It locks them in. The sources consistently mention this awful auditory distress, wheels screeching frantically, yeah, but not like the smooth sound of wheels on clean rails, more like a high-pitched metallic shriek, as if the wheels are literally fighting the rusted tracks. And piercing through that sound, chaotic human noises, men shouting, sometimes screaming. It suggests not some peaceful ethereal haunting, but a moment of absolute intense panic replaying over and over. That is genuinely disturbing, like the event itself is somehow trapped, still unfolding in that soundscape. And this wasn't just some rural legend whispered around farms, was it? It started impacting the actual functioning railway system nearby. Absolutely. The sources confirm real disruption. Even modern railway staff guys used to the noises and the isolation of working the desert lines at night started reporting these encounters. What did they see? Seeing a blazing train of light silently racing past their own modern locomotives, only to just vanish into the dark scrubland further on. It apparently led to actual labor problems. No. Several sources mention pragmatic, experienced railway workers, people dealing with heavy machinery, tight schedules, quitting their jobs rather than risk seeing it again. Okay, when a ghost story starts costing the railway company actual money in lost staff, it's hit a nerve. It really begs the question, though. If the physical tracks are rusted ruins, what is the spectral light even running on? The whole experience seems completely untethered from physical reality. It does. It almost suggests the landscape itself is holding on to something. A profound spiritual scar, maybe? Or some kind of energetic imprint left by the trauma, which leads us nicely into the explanations people have tried to come up with. Exactly. Because when physical reality offers no answers, people naturally turn to tradition, folklore, speculation, trying to fill that explanatory vacuum. Right. Let's shift into those competing theories then. The whole story is soaked in wealth, diamonds, likely death. So it's not a huge surprise the theories connect to the cost of it all. Theory 1 goes right for the cargo, doesn't it? The diamonds themselves. Yes, that's a very popular theory, especially among people familiar with the whole illicit diamond trade history, the IDB. It basically argues that the vanishing wasn't random, but was directly linked to a specific cursed shipment. Cursed how? The idea is that this train wasn't just carrying official diamonds or even just regular stolen diamonds. It was supposedly hauling a large illicit cache that came from a secret unsanctioned mine, maybe a sacred site. The theft was so profound and the source so forbidden that the spiritual debt incurred somehow trapped the train itself. Oh, okay. So the train became the vessel not just for stolen wealth, but for stolen karma, almost. Making it forever bound to that spot until the spiritual books are balanced somehow. That's the essence of it, yes. And then the second major spiritual theory shifts the focus from the cargo to the people, the human element, which is perhaps even more tragic. What's that angle? This belief suggests that the sheer intensity of the fear, the greed, the desperation surrounding the diamond rush may be felt by the crew, maybe by miners trying to escape on the train, somehow bound their very souls to the machine. Bound their soul? Yes. So they are forever doomed running that line eternally, not just on physical rails, but running it, as one source poetically puts it, between life and death. Wow. That implies the real cost of the diamond rush wasn't just measured in backbreaking labor or financial crime, but in soul currency. Like the intense focus on material gain created a literal spiritual trap. Precisely. And this belief, this perception of trapped souls and cursed ground, it actually led to real-world attempts at intervention. Traditional healers in the region apparently acknowledged the power of this lingering negativity and actively tried to cleanse the site to free the souls. Yes, and to neutralize the cursed energy they felt was attached to the train and the old rail line, they used specific traditional methods, right? Yeah. I think the sources mentioned Mfefo. They did, yes. The healers used Mfefo, which you might know as African sagebrush. Burning Mfefo is a really important part of many Southern African spiritual practices. It's used for purification, for cleansing spaces, and sometimes for opening pathways to communicate with or appease ancestors or spirits. So the goal was clear. Use this powerful ritual tool to guide these distressed souls towards peace, break the cycle. That was the intention. But here's where the story takes another chilling turn. The cleansing rituals. They failed, despite using info. Apparently so. Despite these powerful traditional attempts to intervene, the whistle still sounds, the light is still seen. In fact, some accounts say it's particularly pronounced, almost predictable, according to a specific celestial schedule. The sources consistently note the phenomenon is strongest, most reliably witnessed during the full moon. Of course, the full moon. So whatever curse or spiritual binding is at play here was apparently stronger than even the traditional methods used to try and break it, leaving the site uniquely, stubbornly haunted. It seems so. Which brings us more or less up to the modern era. The legend persists for over a century, gathering layers of history, folklore, spiritual dread, until we hit 2019. The digital age decides to confront the spectral age. Yes, the YouTubers. Right. In 2019, this group of online content creators, ghost hunters presumably, decided they wanted to capture the ultimate paranormal unboxing, as they apparently called it. They went out to stake out the old line near Kimberley, armed with modern tech. Exactly. HD cameras, night vision, infrared gear, sensitive audio recording equipment. They were determined to get definitive, shareable proof of the ghost train. The irony is pretty thick, isn't it? Trying to get crisp digital evidence of a spectral steam train accident from the early 1900s. But the sources suggest their encounter wasn't just about catching a weird light on camera. It went badly wrong. It really did. The outcome reported is deeply chilling and seems to underscore the idea that this isn't just a passive hunting, there's an active danger associated with it. Of the team that went out, only one person made it back to civilization. Only one. What happened to the others? It's unclear from the accounts we have, but the one person who returned was described as being deathly pale, physically shaking uncontrollably, and completely unable to speak, just mute, apparently in a state of profound trauma-induced shock or catatonia. That level of shock, it suggests they didn't just see something scary, they experienced something utterly terrifying, maybe even harmful. Did they manage to recover any of their equipment, any footage? Allegedly, yes. Yeah, some footage was recovered, and it supposedly provides the clearest, though obviously still disputed, modern evidence. The reports describe the footage showing the initial approach of the phenomenon, a sudden, blindingly intense light that just completely wipes out the night vision cameras. Okay, a bright light. But again, it's the sound captured on the recording that's often highlighted. That distinct, awful noise of iron wheels scraping, described not just as running on rails, but scraping. Through eternity. Scraping through eternity. That phrase alone paints a horrifying picture. A journey with no end, no destination, just endless friction. It really does. And maybe the most spectral, most disturbing detail reportedly captured in that fleeting footage right before it cuts out or the camera fails is what was seen in the window spaces of that spectral light train. What? Not just shadows. No. According to the accounts of the footage, what you could glimpse were ghostly faces, contorted faces, screaming. Oh, good grief. Yeah, suggesting this wasn't just the phantom outline of an engine, but visual confirmation of the tormented crew, still locked in that moment of terror, their final moments endlessly replaying within that spectral light. What a truly horrific image. And such a potent mix of history and active haunting. So just to recap where we've got to. We've looked at the intense historical pressure cooker of Kimberley during the Diamond Rush. The context of immense wealth and paranoia. The completely inexplicable vanishing of that midnight train, leaving absolutely no physical trace, and then this enduring, terrifying spectral echo that's persisted across the Northern Cape for decades, seemingly confirmed by some really traumatic modern encounters. And the bottom line is, the true fate of that engine, its crew, and whatever valuable or cursed cargo it was carrying, it remains one of history's great unanswered questions. And the loose end that refuses to be tied up. Instead, it manifests as this eerie noise and light, particularly under the full moon. Exactly. Which brings us back to maybe the most poignant and frankly unsettling theory. We discussed the idea that the souls of the crew, maybe others too, are eternally bound to run that line between life and death. If we take that idea seriously, even metaphorically, if the Ghost Train of Kimberley is a kind of perfect, persistent record of historical trauma, what does that really suggest about the spiritual price tag attached to the kind of aggressive industrial pursuit of wealth that literally built Kimberley? It really forces you to wonder, doesn't it? Could the sheer intensity of the greed be exploitation, the human cost involved in extracting that diamond wealth? Could it have created a spiritual debt so profound, so deep, that it actually manifests as a literal haunting? A train forever running, hauling the weight of that cursed profit. A truly powerful and disturbing thought to end on. Yeah, it makes you think. If you ever do find yourself out there in the vast quiet of the Northern Cape night, maybe listen extra carefully. You might just hear the distant shriek, the train that never made it home, still pulling the immense weight of a century-old tragic and perhaps unforgiven fortune.